Okay, Mark, those winds, they're not going away here.
They'll be back again tomorrow.
Okay.
Yeah, we had some today. Wind gusts to about 30 miles an hour. Not too bad tomorrow. Let's ramp it up a little bit. Maybe up to 50, 55 miles an hour across the Northeast, which would be an issue. Obviously, we still have those high wind watches in place for the west and the northeast into east central sections. Likely to see these go over to either wind advisories or high wind warnings. And I wouldn't be surprised to see Albuquerque thrown into the mix with a wind advisory. I don't think we'll have a high wind warning here. I don't think we're going to be dealing with that kind of wind, but it is going to be a very windy setup here coming up through the day tomorrow. And because of that, we have the red flag warnings across the northeast in through the metro area, down into south central and southwestern sections of the state. We also have fire watches across the southeast here. So not a great setup. We're starting to enter into that fire season where it's not the big timber fires we're worried about. It's the grass fires, which could be a concern. 64 degrees right now, and temperatures now 40s and 50s off to the north, 60s in central sections, and then down to the south, mainly dealing with temperatures in the 60s at this point. And the big story is still on the west coast here. Good looking storm heading into northern California, and it's about time. We're finally getting some snow in the Sierra. Some good news there, over a foot in portions of the Sierra high up. Well, as this storm heads in, it's not going to come rolling right through the state. So that's our main issue. And when we end up on the south side of these storms, especially at this time of year, we get a ton of wind, and that's exactly how it's going to shake out for tomorrow. Southwesterly winds will rip across the state as this storm slides to our north. As the storm works its way on out by Thursday, cooler air will pile its way in, and we'll see our temperatures dip for at least one day before they start to come back up again heading into the weekend here. So here's the overall setup, which is not a great one for getting any sort of precip here, because most of the action stays to the north. As you can see, Colorado could get a little bit of rain and snow, but we're mainly looking at dry and windy conditions with mainly sunny skies throughout the area tomorrow. And given that we've been fairly dry, once we start to kick up the winds in some of these areas that have dust around, we may well be looking at blowing dust issues around the Northwest Plateau and the east central section. So that is one thing to worry about. And obviously it's not just a dust concern, because if we could get a little rain with this, obviously that would calm things down a little bit, but that's not going to happen. There are no major storms headed in our direction that are going to bring meaningful rain probably until next week. So it's going to be a pretty quiet setup across the board, and because of that, we have some ingredients that are not great for fire danger. Obviously, as many of you know and have felt the effects over the past week to 10 days, temperatures have been well above average, about 10 to 15 degrees above average. The moisture is gone across the state at this point. Very dry air in place. So you combine that dry air with the warm temperatures and winds, which are going to be really off the charts tomorrow, up to 50 miles an hour in some areas of the state. And that means very high fire danger across the board. And the areas to watch most closely will be those fine fuels, because up in the northern mountains, areas like that, even some of our southern mountain areas, we're still wet enough not to have huge fire concerns there. But that will start to change too. And remember, eventually we're going to transition out of the plains fire danger and bring it up into the high timber, which is when we really get the big fires. 53 in Durango, 51 Pagosa Springs, and 59 in Alamosa. Partly cloudy and breezy. Not as windy here, but if you get down into the northwest, warm and windy. 61 in Farmington, 63 in Grant, 61 in Gallup. Gusta 45 miles an hour. Plenty of sunshine and windy tomorrow across the southwest. 77 in TRC, 78 in Deming. Over to the southeast, warm and windy. Gusta 45 miles an hour. Temperatures still warm, but notice they come down a bit on Thursday. Up to the northeast, a ton of wind, blowing dust, a little bit of a concern here too. 68 Las Vegas, 64 in Mora. Up to the northern mountains, mostly sunny with very gusty winds with gusts to 55 miles an hour, especially along the ridge tops. Out to the east mountains, very windy here with gusts to 50 miles an hour and temperatures hovering in the 60s. And in the metro area, sunny, and it will be windy here too. 74 in the valley, 73 downtown, and 72 out on the west side. Your Albuquerque 7-day forecast shows the wind subsides on Thursday. We'll go to cool temperatures, the high of 66 by Thursday. If you want to talk more on Twitter, we'll do that at KRQE Mark.
All right. Thank you, Mark.